What's going on, guys? I am already back with another Hat format tournament review. This is for the Moralltach Monthly 34, which was the first Moralltach Monthly, or in general, really big Hat tournament for the 2025 season. And it got a whopping 56 players, which is just massive for a online Hat format tournament. And in general, the Moralltach Monthly again, is a tournament that is held on Dueling Book through the Hat format Discord. And yeah, so it's just one of their more popular events in general. And we're just going to break down what decks actually showed up to it. We're going to look over the topping deck list, see if there's any cool tech cards, and just kind of review the tournament as a whole. I know you guys have really been enjoying these videos, so hopefully you will enjoy this one as well. I know it's very soon after I had covered the Hat Championships, which if you haven't checked out that video, you definitely want to check it out. It was posted just a handful of days ago, and a lot of people have been asking me, and I may start covering some of the actual replays for the top cut of this event and events moving forward. If enough people say they want to see that, then I will definitely do my kind of blind reaction to some of those matches. So definitely let me know in the comment section if that's something you guys would be interested in. But anyways, let's get straight into this. Again, there was 56 players that entered. The Moralltach Monthly is a tournament that anyone who wants to join can join, as far as I am aware. And so let's go over this breakdown. So for the decks that entered, there were 11 Geargia. Geargia has been super popular the last handful of tournaments, and so it was kind of expected that Geargia would take up the most spots. After that, we had 5 Spellbook, 5 Artifact Trap Tricks. I know a lot of people were kind of confused why in the Hat Championship there was no Artifact Trap Tricks in the top cut, and we'll see if that's any different for this event. After that, 4 Bujin, 4 Mermail, 3 Sylvan, 3 Other, which it just says Other down here as well. Maybe we'll see if there's any way to figure out what those were. 2 Infernity, 2 Koikimiru Fire Fist, 2 Raccoon Turbo, 2 Hieratic Ruler, 2 Harpie, 2 Chainburn, 2 Insector Artifact, 1 Gishki Hieratic, 1 Frog Monarch, that's a little interesting, 1 Battling Boxer, 1 Madolche, 1 Dark World, 1 Lightsworn Ruler, and 1 Fire King. So as usual, a very large and nice spread of decks. Obviously, your main ones are in this larger section here, Geargia being the most represented. Nothing really standing out in terms of anything that would be kind of different. I guess even some of these 2-ofs are a little interesting, seeing 2 Chainburn is something, 2 Harpies, maybe even only seeing 2 Hieratic Ruler, and again, like no Mythic Ruler or anything in this one, 2 Raccoon Turbo, that's kind of cool. Like overall, a very nice mix of decks, especially for 56 players. So yeah, that was the overall breakdown, and let's go look at what decks actually ended up topping. So here in first place was Artifact Trap Tricks. So, all those people who said, why wasn't there any Artifact Trap Tricks in the top cut of the last event that I covered, I guess they were all waiting for this one. Second place was also Artifact Trap Tricks, which is pretty cool. Third and fourth, I'm not sure if this is in order. They both say third here, same with like fifth, fifth. So was this fourth and fifth were Fire King, which I'm excited to take a look at that. That's pretty cool. I always like that deck. And then Artifact Trap Tricks again. So Artifact Trap Tricks really dominated this event. And so that'll be cool to see exactly what version of Artifact Trap Tricks, whether that's like CKAT or Hat or something like that. And given the results from the last event, I would almost want to say that these are probably Hat decks, simply because Hat has a better grind game, in my opinion, versus, say, CKAT or something along those lines for Geargia and stuff. So we will see After that was Harpie. So really cool there that one of the Harpie decks actually was able to go and top this event. Spellbook, very expected. Mermail, and another Spellbook deck. So pretty cool array of decks. Lots of artifact trap tricks though. So again, gonna be very interesting to see their lists. And also kind of cool to note, there were no Geargia in this top. So people really came prepared for Geargia. And I know I keep saying it, but like if you look at the Hat Championship, Geargia was overwhelming as well in that event. So people probably just were coming into it with the expectation they have to be prepared for it. So I'm kind of excited to see what techs and different things people actually came up with in terms of their deck building and stuff. But congrats to all these people that topped this event. I'm not going to go through all the names because I'm just awful at pronouncing all of those. But let's get straight into these lists. I'm going to go down the line here in terms of the decks. So let's start off with this Artifact Trap Tricks list. So here we have the first place. Looking at this list, they play. So this is Hat. First off, they are playing, the hands in this and, a pretty standard lineup of artifacts here. The one Beagletech, three Moralltach, my bad, and the one Scythe. And then they are playing 3 Fire and 3 Ice Hand, 2 Dionea, and 3 Mermail. So nothing crazy there. For the spells, 3 Ignition, 1 Dark Hole, 2 Double Cyclone, 3 Duality, 2 Soul Charge. Again, nothing crazy there. So far, this is really standard, though I can already kind of see a debunk in the main, which is kind of different, but we'll talk about that in a second. For the traps, 3 Sanctum, 1 Bottomless, 1 Breakthrough. It's kind of normal for Hat and CKAT and those decks to play like 1, maybe sometimes 2, and especially like siding hand traps is very common. So 1 Breakthrough, 2 copies of Call the Haunted, 1 Compulse, 1 Debunk. So this is a little weird in my opinion, but I don't hate it. I think Debunk is a card that, in general, if you're looking at the top decks of Hat and the amount of hand traps and different things, it really does feel all right if you just need a one like random card to main a copy of Debunk. It's such a strong card. It hits, like I said, almost anything in the format. So seeing that is pretty cool. 1 Warning, 1 Torrential, 1 Trap Trick Trapple Nightmare, and the 1 Wiretap. I've talked about this. I like when I see the 1 random Wiretap. Looking at the side deck, though, I already see this. Siding a second copy of Beagletech, that is very interesting to me, though if you're expecting a lot of Geargia, you would probably expect to be in a more grindy situation and not expecting to necessarily get OTK'd or anything. So putting in a second copy of that doesn't necessarily feel the worst, just because over the span of multiple turns, would be able to potentially resolve multiple of these. Plus, everyone knows that the old, Ignition plus Beagletech play is so strong, and then being able to make a rank 5 your following turn. So I don't hate that, it's just different. I guess I'm not used to seeing the artifacts necessarily in the side, though I know back in the day people would side the Scythe. But a second Beagletech, okay. 2 Crow, 3 Max C. Pretty standard overall. I know some people like the 3 Crow and 3 Max C, but 2 and 3 isn't bad at all. 1 copy of Mind Control, 2 Knock, and here's exactly what I'm talking about. The Knocks and double Acid Trap Hole shows that people really were expecting a lot more of the Geargia, as well as other decks that are going to be kind of grindy, for example, decks setting hands and different things. So seeing that kind of confirms that, in my opinion. The second breakthrough skill, again, if you're not maining it, more decks have started doing that. Only 1 copy of Debunk, which I guess makes sense if you are choosing to main one already. 1 Transmigration Prophecy. This has started popping up more and more. I know it kind of died out for a little while, but seeing that is actually kind of nice, I guess. And the second copy of Wiretap. Looking at the extra deck, nothing stands out to me. It all looks very standard. They're playing the Gaia Dragon, the Volcasaurus, the Tyrus. Yeah, no, I'd say for the most part, this extra deck looks, pretty standard, nothing crazy. And overall, this is a pretty solid list. I like it a lot. Nothing too crazy. I've talked about liking, 2 and 2 on the hands, but if you're expecting more grindy decks, you probably want to see these more. So, that seems completely fine. Moving on to second place, here is another Artifact Trap Tricks deck. This one looks like it's more so CKAT, and that's like cat with the C and the K, surprisingly. Usually they just go with one and they choose to main deck hand traps, but here it looks like they are choosing to main the second Beagle Tech and the 3 Moralltach, and I see no Scythe at all. So that's a little interesting. But then after that, 3 Card-D, love this card. If you see this with Duality and back row, you're set. And the 3 copies of Curry Bandit, which is very common if they are playing a slightly higher amount of these artifacts, I guess. And in general, because I was going to just skip ahead here a little bit, they are choosing to play 3 Breakthrough Skill and 3 Call the Haunted. So if, your artifacts or your trap tricks do get milled, you have a higher chance of seeing these to actually revive them, which is very good. And if you hit a Breakthrough Skill and get that into graveyard, you can use the Banish effect, which is also very good. So, that is pretty good. Overall, again, it looks like they're siding hand traps. We'll get to that in a second. But other than that, it's a very similar list in terms of the spell and traps, other than, obviously making room for 3 and 3. So they're not playing the debunks in the main like the last deck and, obviously the cards and stuff. But looking at the side, here's a good example of what I was talking about with 3 Crow and 3 Max C. I'm sure going second, these are easy side-ins, because usually some people will like to either drop some form of artifacts or drop, say, Curry Bandits for hand traps or something. So even maybe dropping some of these is a possibility. So I could see this being extremely useful, and I've talked about you want to have your Crows and Max Cs because they just hit so many matchups. Your combo decks and stuff, Max C is great, and your Crows are just good against almost any deck. After that, we have the Dark Hole, Double Knock, and the copy of Acid Trap Hole. So again, just lots of preparedness for that. And then here, Triple Debunk and Double Wiretap. So again, this is just really good, especially if you're expecting hands or just a lot of hand traps and different things, or I guess even if you're expecting Mermail, because Mermail has a pretty decent Geargia matchup, I want to say, because, summoning Undying, sending something like a Marksman is an easy way to out cards. So being able to have debunk for that, or again, hand traps or artifacts or just almost anything, it's really good. And yeah, Wiretap just to outgrind the grindy decks is good. Moving on to their extra deck, again, looks pretty standard overall. They are choosing to play the Heartland Draco, and they went with double Honor Arc, so that's pretty cool, but nothing super unheard of. Always like to see the Emerald to put back different things so that, especially putting back your artifacts can be kind of nice so that you have your Ignitions and Sanctums live. So again, 2 very solid, straight to the point lists. Nothing too crazy, so let's move on to the next one, which is the Fire King list. Very excited to look over this one. So with the monsters, they played 1 Bear, 1 Wolfbark, triple Fire Hand, and triple Ice Hand, 2 Barong, 3 Yaksha, double Garunix, and that's it for the monsters. So I would say, looking at this, the Barong, the thing with this one is, like, unlike Yaksha that can be destroyed by battle or card effects, if I'm remembering correctly, Barong specifically has to be destroyed by card effects, so it kind of makes sense to only play 2, especially when you're maxing out on the hands and playing 3 and 3, but very cool. Also, only 1 Bear. I get it. It's kind of like that extra thing, because if you're using your Tenkies, more than likely you're probably wanting to find some of your Fire Kings, and you already have enough normal summons in the deck with the hands and, like, in general, Wolfbark and stuff, so I get that. It's a great card to kind of run into a lot of back row or force an answer, especially against, say, like Geargia, where they have a set armor or something. It's kind of good just to use with your tankies and stuff. Moving on to the spells, they have 2 circle, 1 dark hole, triple tanky, triple lance, and triple I'm forgetting the name of this one right now. It's the one that if your opponent controls a monster, you special summon one from your deck of a Beast, Warrior, Wing Beast, then it's destroyed. Onslaught. That's the name of it. My bad. Just kind of had a brain fog there. So that, and then 1 soul charge. All of this looks really good. Nothing over the top. 1 soul charge is pretty normal in this deck because, like, for example, these are going to summon themselves back. Your hands float into one another. Your wolf bark can summon back some of these. So really good there. After that, they chose to play 2 copies of Blackhorn. So that is interesting. I guess maybe stopping cards like Dweller would be pretty solid in this deck, simply because Dweller can turn off, the hands. It turns off the destruction of these. So very good there. 1 bottomless, double Call the Haunted. So again, just more ways to bring things back. I guess I should also mention that Circle kind of counts as like a reborn, since you destroy one of yours that you control and basically summon back one from grave of a fire monster or whatever. So that's just more ways to actually, get back your guys. 1 Compulse, 1 Needle Sealing, which is very good in this deck because it will destroy your stuff, which will trigger the effects. Obviously not the hands, because they have to be destroyed by opponents' card effects, but it's a good way to clear out people trying to just push for game. Triple Skill Drain, that's a benefit of this deck, is it can play this because most of these, if not almost all of them, are realistically graveyard effects, and they hurt so many decks. Yeah, like there's not a whole lot of decks, especially looking at the top decks we saw, that can really play through this all that well. And then 1 Torrential, 1 Warning. Moving on to the side deck, again, triple Crow, triple Max Z. It's always great to see these. Triple MST, very good because, again, so much back row in this format in general. You want to be able to have some form of out for it. You can tell that they're maining the lances because they'd rather be able to play through things rather than hitting specific cards. Again, if you're expecting a lot of artifacts, sometimes it is better just to have the lances to stop things like, what's it called, like breakthrough skills and compulses and bottomlesses and things like that, rather than just hoping you can hit a random good back row. Especially, I guess, if you're not expecting like Infernity, which is kind of a lower tier deck lately, closer to like that 2 or 2.5, then I would say that, yeah, MST, sure, you could like wait and snipe a back row for the opponent when it's their turn, but I would say siding these is pretty common in a lot of different decks, so nothing crazy there. The 2 copies of NAWCQ, the 3rd copy of Blackhorn, again, great for things like Geargia and just other decks that can easily put up Xyz monsters or just inherent summons. A 2nd copy of Needle Sealing, good to see, and double Debunk. Moving on to the extra deck, we have 1 Dweller, double Tiger King, 1 Emerald, 1 Direwolf, my bad, double Exciton, 1 Cowboy, 1 Chain, 1 101, Ragna Zero, Black Ship, Rhapsody and Berserk, Heartland Draco, and the 1 copy of Crazy Box because of Skill Drain. So, no, very good list. I like to see it. I always like to see this deck do well in events. And again, I think it got 3rd or 4th. So, whichever it did, very impressive. And yeah, let's move on to the next deck. Next, we have another Artifact Trap Tricks. This one looks like, it looks like CKAT. It's kind of a mild CKAT build. I say that because they're only playing 2 copies of Card D and double Crow, double Max C. I know a lot of builds will prefer for like this deck specifically to play like 3 and 3 or 3 and 2, but 2 and 2 isn't bad at all. They're playing a lot of artifacts. I just realized that. They went with double Beagletech, triple Moralltach, and the Scythe. That's interesting, especially looking here, they're playing the 3 Ignition and 2 double Cyclone, so it's not like they're playing extra ways to pop these or anything. So I feel like card D though with that, you just have a higher likelihood of actually drawing these. Maybe they were like wanting to open some of these, hoping that the opponent would hit it, thinking it's other back row, but I don't know. That is definitely an interesting choice there. After that, though, the spells do look pretty standard for the most part. Triple ignition, double cyclone. The one dichotomy, a lot of decks don't play this anymore. This was like a 2014 special for back in the day. And there are certain decks that can play it, but I haven't seen this actually see play too recently in like modern hat necessarily for like cat or hat or that many other like non-rogue decks. So that's kind of cute, I guess. And it's a good way to put back resources, though, I'll say that. Triple duality and one soul charge for the traps, triple sanctum, one bottomless, double breakthrough, double call the haunted, one compulse, one warning, one torrential, and double trap tricks, trap hole nightmare. So, biggest thing I'm noticing is again, a lot of artifacts, the 2 and 2 ratio for the hand traps, and the 2 card D. I guess you don't really want to be drawing card into card, but even then, you don't have that many normal summons in this deck, so I always think 3 is like super solid, but we'll keep going and see. For the side deck, 1 Crow and 1 Max C, so okay, they are at least playing the extra copies. I can't stress enough how important I feel these cards are. Maybe it's like a modern brain player, but even then, when I played back then, cards like Max C just felt so good that you should at least be siding them, though the format was kind of different back then. Double Fire and Ice Hand, so that is cool that they can kind of just like smokescreen into the actual hat part of the deck, like the hands. So that's cool. 1 Dark Hole, 1 Mind Control, very standard. In the side up for the traps, we have the 1 Acid, double Debunk, 1 Deep Dark. Haven't seen a lot of Deep Dark in these lists, actually, now that I'm thinking back. They more so decided to go for more copies of Acid Trap Hole, the 1 Soul Drain, and double copies of Wiretap. For the extra deck, 1 Dweller, 1 copy of Durendal, double Pleiades, 1 M7. Yeah, no, nothing too out of the ordinary. I see the 1 copy of Zenmayo, and I do like Zenmayo a lot, especially seeing there was so many decks playing such heavy back row in the like top half of the top cut. So I do like that a lot. But overall, cool list. It's definitely a little off the wall in my opinion in terms of like what I would say is basic ratios and stuff, but not hating at all. I think it's a very nice list. And, again, as usual, they did manage to top this event with a very solid turnout. After that, I know people were probably waiting on this one, is the Harpie list. 1 Zephyros, double Card Car, 1 Cyber Harpie Lady, 3 Chandler, double Dancer, 1/1, 3 Queens, triple Max C for the monsters. So interesting enough here, I'm seeing they aren't playing the Summoner Monks, which is usually a really good discard for Hysteric Sign. Maybe it's because, if you're expecting a lot more back row, more breakthrough skills, more Fiendish Chains, etc., then you're basically relying on dumping a spell, hoping they don't have a negate, and then being able to get resources in the end phase. So having double card car at that rate, you'd rather, I guess, maybe draw into just more cards in general versus only adding Harpies, though I think in general, Hysteric Sign's a crazy card, being able to just add 3 Harpie cards. So I guess it's whatever. Maybe against, Fire Kings, if they matched up, then this being able to tribute for cost was nice. But other than that, I guess I don't hate it. They're not playing. I guess let's look at the rest of this list and then I'll talk about that. 1 Elegant Egotist, 2 Forbidden Lance, double Hunting Ground, triple Hysteric Sign, double Duality, double Soul Charge for the spells. So only 2 Hunting Ground. This feels all right, especially if they're not like, no, it just feels weird, but unless they're expecting a lot of artifacts because this is mandatory, so you don't want to be popping artifacts on your turn. I don't know. This list is just it's not bad, it just is it's a little different than usual, and it's just enough that it's interesting. Like, for example, double duality, I guess it makes sense if you're hoping to go for a Chandler play right away. Another thing is they're not playing the pet dragon, which I am such a fan of not playing, so I'm so glad to see they chose not to do that. But let's move on to the traps and other stuff, and we'll talk more about it at the end. One copy of Blackhorn, I've talked about it in the past. If you need an extra card in a deck, Blackhorn is usually a pretty solid card. One bottomless, triple Fiendish Chain, triple Hysteric Party, double Wing Blast, one Torrential, one Warning. So yeah, no breakthrough skill. I know some people like to play breakthrough skill for the fact that you can definitely take advantage of the second effect, and just in general, I'm pretty sure Hysteric Party just discards any card. Well, yeah, I would say so, yeah. But no, very interesting, because a lot of times also Harpie will play Crow in the main, and here I see it in the side. Also seeing the third card D in the side, I guess it's an easy thing to put in when going first. For that reason I mentioned before, you're able to just kind of see this and then get more draws, especially if you know, Yeah, no, very interesting to see that, but it's kind of cool. The triple Crow, one Dark Hole, one double Cyclone. Okay, not MST or anything, double Cyclone, which I guess makes sense, because if you want to pop your Hysteric Sign, or, after you've negated a monster, pop your Fiendish Chain or something like that, I guess that makes sense there. One Mind Control, the second Blackhorn, nice, triple Debunk, the one Icarus attack. This was one of the cards that I was about to say about playing this. I like seeing this card. I think it's really, really good being able to basically, pop two random cards. Well, not random, like you select them, but I like this card a lot. Seeing it in the side isn't terrible. It's interesting. One copy of Needle Sealing in the side and two Trap Stun. I don't know. This list just feels so weird to me. Maybe it's just because Harpie doesn't top as much anymore as it used to back in 2014. Like I've talked about before, I played this deck a lot in 2014. I played a ton of decks. I used to switch decks like every week almost, and then like kind of just rotate back through them. But this one just, I don't know, the ratios and things just feel so off, but it's cool to see. Looking at the extra deck, they're playing the 1-0 fine, which I've talked about. I like this card. I wish I could play more of it, but usually 1 is completely fine. And the double Chidori is really good. Other than that, the Heartland Draco, because you have your field spell, and Hysteric Sign is good. And everything else looks very standard as a whole. Karen Gorgon's actually really cool too, because the changing targeting and stuff like that can be kind of mind gamey in this deck. But yeah, no, overall, cool list, very weird, throws me off a little, but I don't hate it. Moving on, we have the Spellbook deck. Already seeing a couple things I want to talk about, but yeah, okay, so this person chose to main double DD Crow and 3 Max C. So I've talked about this in the past, that usually a lot of times they'll choose Max C, Valor, or DD Crow and play like 2 to 3 of them. This build decided they wanted to play 5 hand traps, which I'm all for playing, Crows and Max Cs. I guess it's just a little interesting to see that they played so many, because that's a little different, but overall very cool. After that, the basic monsters for Spellbook. Usually Spellbook is pretty straight to the point, and looking at this, the one Book of Moon, double Duality, triple Crescent, double Eternity, one Fate, one Life, one Power, triple Secrets, double Wisdom, double Master, and double Tower. Nothing crazy there. I think the craziest thing for the trap lineup that I'm seeing is 2 Fiendish. A lot of builds will play 3, or I guess they just chose to play more of the hand traps, and that's also why they only chose the 1 copy of Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare, as well as, I guess, the 2 Fiendish. So they cut small corners to change it up from what would be a just very straight to the point list, but it is what it is. It's not bad at all. Again, I like the hand traps. It's just a little different seeing this as the trap lineup. For the side deck, we have one Cycle Reader, the third Crow, one Kaiku. Pretty normal. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen much Cycle Reader in the other lists yet. But okay. One Dark Hole, one Dimensional Fissure, triple MST, double Blackhorn, one Breakthrough, one Rivalry. Haven't seen one. Usually it's like two, sometimes three. So that's a little different, but again, at least they are playing it, which is good. This is a deck that can take advantage of Rivalry so well. One Soul Drain and double Wiretap. So nothing too crazy. I guess just the random one-ofs, like for this and this. And then like, no, the Crow makes sense. That makes sense. No, I guess it's all right. Looking though at the extra deck, the one thing that throws me off a little bit at first was going to be the Cataster and the Armades. And that's usually just because you see these more so in the builds that choose to play Valor, since Valor is just a level 1, so it's pretty easy to like manipulate and get to these. So seeing those in the side or in the extra is a little bit different, but I guess it's kind of cool. I always like seeing small variations to decks, especially one like Spellbook that is just usually a pretty straight to the point type of deck. But let's move on. Two more lists left. We are now looking at Mermail, and right away, how many cards is this? This definitely is over 40. I would say 40 is probably here. So is this like 45 cards? Which Mermail is a deck that can easily do that simply because, you know, they're searching so much, sending so much, whatever. So, okay, they are playing the 3 controller, which the builds that do play more monsters usually are on more controller just because at that point there's less of a chance to see it, but if you do see it, it allows you to make synchro plays. So that's cool. And then 1 Dragoons, double heavy infantry, double marksman. Nothing wrong with that. I know some people like 3 marksmen, but I'm the type that also likes 2 and 2 for these. The triple Undyne, triple Maxi in the main. This is something that some builds play in the main, some don't. I think as of right now, the way Hat format's shaping up, it is pretty solid that you'd rather have it than not. 1 Lind, 1 copy of Lead. And so, yeah, they're playing the 1 Lead and double Megalo. This has been a trend that's been a little more popular lately than not. It used to be like you just play 1 and 1, but 2 and 1 is a little more common now. 3 Lin, 3 Pike, 3 Teus, 1 Turge, 1 Moulin Glacia, and 1 Title. So overall, the main monster lineup is pretty solid, pretty standard as a whole. Again, just the small changes is the only difference. And then the 1 Allure, 1 Dark Hole, triple Salvage. I've talked about this before. I'm not super sold on it, but at the same time, I kind of like the idea of playing it. Like, Mermail is definitely a deck I need to play a little more of. Not that I don't know what I'm doing with it, just in general, I feel like I like playing some of the more fun decks and stuff like that over, say, like Mermail, just because I've played so much of the higher level type decks in the past. But no, it's a great deck. 3 Soul Charge, 3 Sphere, double Breakthrough Skill, 1 Wing Blast, and 1 Vanities. I guess that's probably the biggest weird thing with this list. And yeah, no, I've seen some builds even max out on playing 3 Emptiness, and a lot of builds playing like 2 to 3 Wing Blast. So I guess, I don't know if maybe they were just not trying to hit like 50 cards maybe, so they chose to do that. So I guess that ratio is sort of bizarre, but no, I mean, it's different. This is a deck that sometimes you'll see them play like the Dragon Ice or like a random 1 or 2 of, so I'm not super thrown off by that, but that is a little different. Moving on to the side deck, we see 3 DD Crow, again, very good to always see that. 2 Flying Sea, interesting that none of the other lists have really played it yet, though I guess this deck is one of the ones that needs to stop certain other combo decks a little more, so I guess that's all right. Triple MST and 1 Twister, very normal. 2 Debunk, 2 Lightmere, and double Malcat. I always like seeing Malcat in the side. It's a card that a lot of people just forget about for whatever reason. It's kind of like one of those like staples that everyone is like afraid of, but then when it comes time to play, a lot of people just forget about it. So it is cool to see, and I also, obviously Lightmere for things like Bujins, Lightsworn Ruler, the artifacts, etc. Always good to see. Looking at the extra, really nothing to talk about here. This all looks kind of the standard of what Mermail is known to play. The, 3 synchros and then the rest is pretty normal here. Yeah, I guess some people don't like to play the copy of Ragnazero, but even then, having one slightly different card doesn't make this any less standard, I'd say. So yeah, let's move on to the last list, which is another Spellbook list. And very similar to the other one, they are playing a lot of hand traps. This one chose to even one-up it more, and they chose 3 DD Crow and 3 Max C, so people just wanted to make sure that they could stop those grave effects and get as much plus as they could off of the decks that were specialing a lot. And other than that, the monsters are the rest the same. And this person, looking at this, it's all standard up until triple wisdom. So again, just knowing and having that insight that there is going to be a lot of Geargia and being able to stop all those trap cards is so good. Because in general, I guess Geargia usually plays a lot of breakthrough skill and a lot of fiendish chain amongst other traps. So having the insight to play the wisdoms is extremely good. And after that, this person chose to play triple copies of Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare, which I've talked about in the past. Some people play 2. Some people play 1, as I believe we saw before. Let me go back. Yeah, the other list just played 1. But seeing 3, it's not super uncommon. It's one of the things that this deck needs help with, is stopping those special summon effects for a handful of reasons. Sometimes the boards this deck can put up aren't the most intimidating in a sense. So having this to kind of prevent what would stop this deck is very good. Moving on to the side deck, I see a lot. Triple Cycle Reader, triple copies of Cyber Dragon. If you're expecting machine decks, like, for example, in the last video, there was Geargia and gadgets and stuff like that, this is a very good call. And I already see, Spellbook is a deck that doesn't really need its extra deck too much. So being able to play double Chimera Tech is very cool. And yeah, the triple Cycle Reader is really good for that Lightsworn Ruler deck. I'm sure that I had seen Bujin and the artifacts. If you're expecting artifacts, which people were playing a lot of in this event, this card is so good against that too. Especially when you're already playing crows, just having extra cards to stop that stuff. Triple MST, Dark Hole, Dimensional Fissure. Oh, I didn't even realize that. They're not playing the power in the main and instead siding it. And I guess that also comes down to playing the extra crow, playing the extra wisdom, and they're not playing duality, which I've talked about in the past. I'm not the biggest fan of duality in spellbooks, but, I see why people would play it, but I guess I'm seeing now slightly more now that I'm looking at the side deck, the 1 Soul Drain and double Breakthrough. So very cool there. In terms of the extra deck, obviously I already pointed out the Chimera Techs. There's the Armades again, and Slacker Magician. This card is really, really good, and I guess they're playing that because of the DD Crows. If they happen to have 2 DD Crows, this card is really hard to out. It prevents like targeting, and if it would be destroyed, you can like detach a material or something. I forget the exact effect, but all I remember is for 2 level 1s having like, I think it's like 2,100 defense or something. That card is really hard to out. So very interesting. This list was actually like, usually when I see Spellbook, I'm like, oh, this is going to be kind of boring, but actually very cool to see. And yeah, so again, that was the top breakdown. very cool to see how this event shaped out, especially right after the Hat Championships. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you've been enjoying these videos, definitely let me know. Drop a like on it. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified anytime I put a new video out. Share this video with your friends. And again, guys, if you want to see me react to some different hat format replays, whether it's from this event or in general, if you want to see me start reacting to different gameplay online, let me know. And also let me know if you guys prefer online gameplay reactions or like in person. I know some people prefer one versus the other, some people like both, but in general, let me know. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video.